Our next guest has had a 50-year career in the music business and much beyond, managing and working with some of the biggest names who ever lived in music. Names like Leonard Cohen, Genesis, Snoop Dogg. And if that's not enough, Stephen Machat has been on a lifelong spiritual journey and has written many books, but a new one that he says has taken 50 years to write is called Unraveling the Bible. Hello and welcome, my friends.
Thank you for having me.
It is so good to meet you, and I'm like, seriously, I've heard your name over the years. You know, I'm also from, I'm from Southern California. I've grown up on the music that you've been involved in. First of all, how do you go from Roslyn, Long Island to, managing and working with the likes of Leonard Cohen, Genesis, so many names, it's not even funny.
Okay, Roslyn, Long Island, is a Masonic word. Roslyn, it means floating stones. So when George Washington was getting his orders from the Scottish Masons, they went to Roslyn, and that's where they gave him his orders, and they told him to leave New York, go down to South Carolina. How did I go from Roslyn? Because I knew something was there. Why did I? Because I believed I'm an energy that just came to planet Earth to please people, to teach people, to make people smile. That's all I know how to do is talk to you. And at the same time, I was raised to use a sword. I'll fight with you. I'll fight with you all day. And I defended people. I had a legal degree.
I cannot imagine you as a lawyer. I'm like, really, lawyer? How does this match? So let's talk about, so you get in the music business. Let's start, you've worked with everybody. Yes, finish that.
My dad was the music lawyer. My dad was one of the first music lawyers. He came back to the United States. He had a Jewish background. He couldn't work in the real estate law firms. And so they had this burgeoning new business called TV, and radio now needed something to put on there. And it started expanding. It was all over the place. And then my generation, I was born in 1952, got sick of it, and we became rock and roll. So right now, Debbie, my queen, sitting over there, I have a record label with her, and I'm telling you right now, I'm putting out 5 albums. I have the Buena Vista Social Club, okay, but they're the Buena Vista Social Orchestra because all the singers are now dead. So we're coming out, we'll tour them all over the place. But I have a band called The Gulls that are as good as any band I've ever had.
I want to get back to your work with some of these greats, like Leonard Cohen and Genesis. I mean, it goes on and on, but you have a Leonard Cohen story. You grew up with him, and what's the real story behind the song Hallelujah?
Hallelujah is about he being able to make love to this Catholic girl that translated for him the law of poetry. And she was studying to be a nun, right? And she was in Belgium. And he met her, and Leonard Cohen liked women. That's what he lived for. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. And he and I would talk about it. One day he came into our office on Broadway, and my dad, who was his business manager and manager from 1969 until death, and Dad would leave me with Leonard because we would talk about God. He was scared of God. So anyway, Leonard Cohen wrote that song, and he came into our office. It must have been about 83. And he says to me, I did it. And I'm looking like, you did what? He says, I finally got into Gabrielle. And I'm like, great, listen to the lyrics. And then we recorded that song in 1984, and it just stunk. And then for whatever reason, Jeff Buckley met you would love this. He met some people that were running the spiritual church up in Manhattan at about 110th Street. And they said to Buckley, you need to hear this song. And anyway, he adapted and he sang it.
This is Hallelujah?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've lived everywhere. I've lived in Africa producing music. I lived in India producing music. But what I did, going back to what you said, I studied religion. Why do they believe in God? Where do these myths and legends come from? That book in your hand is my conclusion. It came out of the Bible. Who's in the Bible? The Bible is a historical diary written by a man named Enki, or being named Enki, telling you what his family did over 400,000 Earth years.
So let's continue on this topic because you talk a lot about it. We've done stuff. We know about the work of Zecharia Sitchin. He's been around a long time. A legitimate man that people followed his work and people are still following his work. So what is it about this whole Nibiru, Enki, Enlil that people maybe thought was crazy decades ago, but now we're seeing it everywhere, this conversation?
Well, the most important thing I learned from my travels is you're born twice. Bing. All of a sudden you have a thought. Well, where did the thought come from? It came from consciousness. Mm-hmm. Consciousness is what the Dalai Lama's people tell you is where you go. It's nirvana. You just exist. Then all of a sudden you have a thought. The minute you have a thought, you've left the sea of consciousness, which is in space where there is no time and there is no space, and now you have a thought. You have a need. You have a desire. That thought becomes an idea. It becomes a blueprint, and you will find a place to incarnate in. Well, we chose Earth. There's not a prettier planet that you could choose according to what we know.
Look what we're doing to it.
In our solar system.
It's burning up now.
But Earth will do it to itself too. Earth is a living organism with us living in that organism. You know, and Earth, I believe Earth is seriously using us to make Earth a prettier place because Earth doesn't have fingers. You know, and you can have all the computers you want, all the AI you want. And as I learned writing that book, you need these fingers. Mankind came here, according to the scientists, they just all of a sudden appeared, and all of a sudden they appear.
We came from apes.
Yeah, with 233 genes that never existed. And they came from the Nephilim. And then when you research what I just told you, well, where did these come from? They actually say that they came from a bacteria, a horizontal transfer. This is, okay, well, guess what? The horizontal transfer were Enki and Enki's wife. And what they did is they created mankind to be the slaves. They needed slaves because the Nephilim and their space travelers here on Earth. So they called their space travelers the Nephilim. So answering you specifically, Abraham was employed by the Hebrew God. Now, the word Nephilim translates into God. The Nephilim, as I read their diaries, say that we come from a creator. I'm agreeing with you. We all come from a creator. There's one common creator. And I will take on anyone, any religion, or whatever they want. We're all from the same source, creation. We're an energy. It's like an energy box. It's a matrix box. I believe in love. And only by teaching each and every one of us that we came from a one creative source. 6 months ago, Debbie saved my life. I had an abscess that was eating my spine. I went out. I died. And I saw energy, and it vibrates. I went to the source of the energy because energy needs to take form. So when you become a thought, it's all alchemy. They teach it to you, but no one wants to understand it. You alchemize, you become solid. You become a thought, which is gas. Gas becomes liquid, and then liquid becomes a solid, right? It's that simple. You and I are throwing energy at each other.
I know. And now we got to stop the energy because we are, unfortunately, in a physical space of the studio right now. And on that note, Stephen, we got to go take this conversation outside, out of the studio. But I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for coming in and sharing your journey, and to be continued. Energy never dies.
It does once, when it gets to absolute zero. And that's in my third book. We got to get out of this place. I tell you how you're born, where you with all this. But when you go to nirvana, your energy is stopped. But there is no absolute zero. Because what you will do is you'll have another thought, you'll have another want, you'll have another desire, and there you go again. Peter Pan moving around, looking for Wendy.
All right, Stephen, thank you so much.
Thanks.